Isabel Hundt is a successful public speaker, certified transformation coach working with empaths and empath-warriors. The emotions clearing practitioner she is. Published author of The Power of Faith-Driven Success and co-author of Unscripted, How Women Thrive in Life, Business, and Relationships. Her expertise revolves around navigating your emotional world, the important role of empaths and empath-warriors, the power of intuition, and the importance of trust and perseverance in today's society. Isabel has been featured on TV shows, radio, and well-known podcasts like EOFire, She Did It Her Way, and Elevating Beyond. Isabel, are you ready to rock the house?
Thank you so much for the intro. I hope my internet is fine because for some reason it got stuck a little.
Oh, it's great. It's great. We'll keep it flowing.
Working?
It's great.
We'll just
yes.
keep it going. We're good. We're running with it. Well, it's 6:00 here. That's usually like mainstream time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we are good now. So thank you so much for coming on, Isabel, and for clearing the schedule to be on here to share with our audience, to add value and let us know about the empath in all of us, and really just take back our power and create our reality. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped. I was looking forward to this interview for the last, I don't know, when did we schedule that? 2 months ago?
Yes. I love it. I love it. So we're going to dive right into the theme of the day and the question of the day, which is every day is birthday. So Isabel, the reason why I created this is because I personally feel that every day is worth celebrating. And sometimes people think it's only once a year that they can celebrate themselves and appreciate themselves. And I said, you know what? Every day is birthday. Yeah. And I want everyone to step into that celebration power and energy. So I'm curious how that principle or mindset has showed up for you, and do you agree? Do you think something differently, or how have you seen it show up in your life?
I think I've never even really consciously thought about it, to be honest, but I think you're right. I mean, if you take every single day, you are fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to get up in the morning and actually breathe. So definitely always is a new birthday, a new day that you can birth. Like if you take it from a spiritual perspective, everything that's happening around you, as we already, you probably talked about that a lot of times, that we create our own reality. That is pretty much that. We're birthing our reality every single day new. And so thinking about that actually makes it even more special because, again, with a birthday, you add more of the celebration to it. So why not celebrate every single day in how we birth the day?
Yes.
And how we want to experience it. So it's actually brilliant. I love it.
Awesome. And imagine if everyone celebrated their morning routine that they get to birth themselves into the day, like they celebrate their birthday. What would that be like?
just don't run around with your birthday suit all day long. Some witches get dressed.
I love it. Awesome. So I'm grateful that you see it, and yeah, it's just spreading that mentality of every day is a gift, is an opportunity to begin again, to course correct, to be our greatest possible selves, be and become our greatest possible selves. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Isabel, why don't you share a little bit more about what you're working on these days in your career and the message that you're sharing with the world?
Right now, I'm working on a lot of different projects, which can lead to a little bit of overwhelm, but it's summer break, so my son is home too. Some of those who have children know how that goes.
Yep.
Yeah, always fun. You don't get everything done that you want to get done. But there are a couple of different things that I'm working on right now. For one, expanding my speaking again. Now I can't use my son as an excuse anymore. But I know, I mean, it's always been on my heart to get back into it since I've done it before. And I'm working on a really, really big project, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to come out. I have to be careful because there's some copywriting and some trademarking, and so there's some lawyer stuff that needs to get figured out. So I can't talk too much about it, but I think it can really change how especially young people experience emotions. And And then I continue working with my amazing clients with my empath. Um, yeah, and I'm trying to work on a TED Talk. I'm still trying to figure out. I've gotten too many emails from people like, why you need to do a TED Talk. Like, I don't know how to word everything. Like a TED Talk is a little different than just a keynote.
Right.
So I'm figuring that out. I'm meditating on it because it just comes back at me every time.
That's awesome. Well, I'm grateful to hear that people around you are like, you need to share your story. You need to go on TED, like that's a powerful acknowledgement of, one, that you have a lot of support, and two, that you have a message worth sharing. You get that feedback, that external feedback, not that you need it, but it definitely does help and reminds you about how powerful and awesome you are and your story and your journey.
Well, thank you. And yes.
You're welcome. Speaking of journey, we're going to go back into your journey and how you got to where you are today with all this speaking and coaching and helping people understand what it means to be an empath and all that good stuff. So let's go back. What were some of those challenging moments where you had to grow into the woman you are today, the influencer, the coach, the speaker, author, all these things that you've accomplished? What were some of those challenging, defining moments for you?
Well, there are a lot of them because I pretty much experienced my life, especially after I turned about 16 to now, not to now, but until I figured all this out, as a struggle. Like for me, struggle was almost like a pin that you just wear as an honor. Like if I don't struggle, I don't work hard enough. If I don't struggle, I don't get anything done. If I don't struggle, there is no reason for me to live, right? So I had this set out for myself, and you can imagine there were a lot of different events. But to go back a little bit, I'm originally from Germany, and I moved to the US about 9 years ago. And there were a lot of different events in my life, from a severe head trauma that I had in the middle of the night in my own bed, which is really weird. Nobody ever knew why or how or what. I just now found out what it is, but I might get to that later.
Okay.
I had another really deep fall from a ladder where I stopped breathing for a second, and I left my body and I could see myself. I don't know, I think I was 5 or so. And then the next big event was at the age of 12, or around the age of 12, a year or two before that. Now don't quote me on that, but I think it was a year or two before I had this dream. The wall came down. I grew up in East Germany. And the wall came down, and that separated West and East. And that's when my dad started, or was able to go to university finally. And he studied social work. And that's when I started to get really into psychology, social work. I literally read his books at the age of 12. But then one day I had this dream. I went to bed, and I just envisioned my life being just like my dad's, right? I was a daddy's girl. I'm going to get my education. I'm going to go to college. I get a degree, and then I get married, and I find a job, and then I have family, and then eventually I retire. Well, the next morning I woke up knowing, nope, that's probably not going to happen for me, because something bigger is in my future, something that I need to do, something that I need to create. And so the dream was that I saw myself, I watched myself, and there was a big stage. Like it was really cool, like music event stages, right? And I was on stage, and I was speaking in a language that I couldn't understand at that point. And I was like, who is that? Like I could recognize myself as an adult, but I was just sweating. Like I could see, I was watching sweating, but the person on stage was very confident and just rallying up the whole crowd. And there were thousands of people. And then the morning came around, and I woke up. I was like, what was that? And all I heard was, if you want to make a difference, you have to go to the US. If you want to create something big, you have to move to the US, because everyone knows what's going on in the US. Just the US doesn't know what's going on outside of it. But everyone is aware of what's going on here. Like if you would talk to my mom right now in Germany, she would know what's going on here.
Wow, that's awesome.
But I don't know quite. I don't even know when the World Championship of Soccer starts. So You know, I just always had this in my mind. And then one day we had some exchange students come to our church, and we hosted one of them, and he was from America. We're still great friends after almost 20 years. Wow. I feel old now.
That's awesome.
And that's when I knew the language that I spoke on stage was English, but I really, really hated it in school. Like I really sucked at it. There were so many times where that was really embarrassing in terms of speaking a foreign language. But it just stuck with me. And so over the years, when I was 18, I came to the US for the first time. I worked as an au pair in DC, which you know, if you have to live with a family that doesn't actually understand a word and you have little kids that know exactly how to play you, that's really, really, really fun because you don't understand anything that those kids are saying. So at some point you're just like, oh, I give up. But I stuck to it, and I was so, you know, when you do something and you just have this big yes in your heart, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do. That's how it felt. And once I went back to Germany to get my degree, I felt lost. I don't belong here. I feel like I got adopted. Don't let my parents hear that. It just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I was in the right place, but I knew I had to get a degree. I wanted to get a degree. I needed to figure something out how I can stay here, because it's really not that easy as people think it is. You don't just win the lottery one day. There's a lot more that goes to it. A lot of money, a lot of sweat, a lot of paperwork, and figuring out what would actually work. But anyways, I studied economics, and I knew that was not what I was supposed to do. At least back then, I thought this is exactly how I would bring this dream to reality, because, hey, everyone has a job available that is connected to economics, especially international economics. I can find easily a job in the US with that. Yeah, right. That was my arguing for going to that college, but it was also one of the hardest for economics in Germany. Really? And so I got very depressed. I failed every single exam. I had a lot of panic attacks and anxiety. The people just got too much for me. At some point, I walked across the street. I didn't care if there was a car coming or not. I just did not care. Wow. Just simple things like a spoon is falling on the floor. I started bawling, almost like something broke. And my roommate was like, "That was just a spoon. You okay?" It's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. And that's when I went to a doctor and said, "Hey, I think I'm depressed. Something is not right." So that was one of my very low points that I had to go through, because I didn't trust my intuition. I was very attached to that dream and how I think it was supposed to work out. And I didn't quite get that back then. I was in my early 20s, and I was like, well, I had this vision and this is how it's going to happen. And I just know exactly, because in your 20s, you know exactly how things are going to work out.
Absolutely.
Right? I thought that. And sometimes I think that in my 30s too. But so I got kicked out of university for failing too many exams after 2 years. So I lost 2 years. Wow. So I was like, okay, I lost a lot of money. I lost 2 years. What am I supposed to do now? And then I started over at a different university with social science and psychology. So I actually finished my degree in sociology and psychology. And I knew this is where I was supposed to go, because, well, it's what I have been studying for all of my life, pretty much ever since I could read. And then I thought, okay, well, I don't know if I can get a job like with that for realizing and bringing my dream to reality. So then I met someone who was American, military, like, oh yeah, maybe that's the way it works. Well, after 3 years, I found out that he cheated on me with like a couple hundred women while I was not there. And
couple hundred? Well, great. Like literally?
Literally. Like really.
Wow.
Apparently that's the thing to do on military bases. That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's true, but that was my experience. It wasn't a good time, because you just feel like the the bottom is being ripped out from underneath you and you fall again. You thought, okay, now I have it figured out. I was 25, and at 25, you should have it figured out, right? I haven't had a job until then either, like not a real job. And I felt such a failure. And then the laws changed and I was able to come back here as an au pair, as a nanny. So I worked for a family in New York. They kicked me out after a few weeks.
Why?
And I moved to San Francisco. They kicked me out after a few weeks. And then I ended up in Indiana. Well, the thing was, for one, those kids could have been my own. And there was a lot of family trouble going on. Mm-hmm. And the first time where I realized that something is different about me was when my friend looked at me and she said, Isabel, you don't understand. You just look through people. People know that you know something about them that they don't want you to know. You're calling them out without saying anything. Wow. That's just how people perceive you. And you know, like the first family, the husband was cheating on the wife. I knew that. He never told me. I never saw him. I just knew it. I could pick up on it. Wow. With the second family, the mom was from Iran and she treated me like her maid. And everyone else around her, even her husband, he wasn't good enough at anything. And just the way I thought about her, she picked up on that because my energy is so strong. I didn't have to say a word and she felt really offended. Of course, she felt discovered. Like, wow. You see me, not good because I have this wall up. I need this wall to feel safe. And so they kicked me out. And at that point, I was living in the street. I didn't have any money. I was talking to the agency and like, we don't know what to do with you. You have all the qualifications. You speak English fluently. I was like, I don't know. I have no money. I had strangers pay for hotel rooms for me and giving me food. I have never experienced that or never had to experience my whole life because I grew up in a very safe environment. And suddenly you in a foreign country, you don't really belong here. You don't really belong at home. And strangers just come up to you like, hey, how can I help you? And that was another thing that really helped me to move through those things where I was like, okay, God, I guess somehow maybe I'm supposed to be here, maybe not. And then I moved to Indianapolis, where I met my now husband. Mm-hmm. Back then, he wasn't going to be my husband. He didn't want to be my husband. He wanted to have 5 years. And I said, I don't have 5 years. And we just had half a year. Right. And he was like, I'm not going to do that. I got into other relationships, not going to do it. So I got into IOPOI for counseling, which I knew wasn't really for me, but whatever. I just thought maybe that's another reason. Again, you see where this is going with you being attached to your dreams, mm-hmm. and you think you haven't figured out how to get there. It always puts you in an emotional roller coaster. And that's what had happened. And I didn't have the $60,000 and I just pretended my way through. And I said, well, my sponsor kind of jumped off the ship. I don't have any money to pay for the school. What am I supposed to do? And I was like, well, you can get an assistantship if you can, but you have to leave the country for a day and then come back. So I went all the way up to Windsor, Canada, which was the most horrible experience. If anyone has ever experienced immigration officers know what I'm talking about, but it is like you're in this little tiny room, you're sweating like crazy. You have this panic attacks because they look so mean at you. Like, we know you did something wrong and we're going to call you out on this, like really military style. And I was just like, I can't handle this. I can't. I'm just going to book my flight and go home. I could feel the anxiety in the room from the other people. And I knew I wasn't doing anything illegal, but you just feel it and you pick it up. And my friend was with me and she just prayed the whole time. She's like, I'm just going to pray. I'm like, okay, please do. And there's the first officer who's like, I'm not going to deal with you. You're going to book your flight back. I don't care. And she's like, oh man, that's not going to happen. And then God worked again. I let it go. And he worked again. Another officer came by and he's like, let me take a look. I don't want to have you go. I feel like there's something bigger that's going on here. I can see something in you that made the other officer not see. He actually said that to me. Wow. And it was incredible. I was like, okay, someone sees me, but I don't know what you see. But after 3 hours of sweating and panic attacks and anxiety, and then, you could feel it all the way down to your bones. Like you were shaking, just sitting there. You didn't want to eat anything. You didn't want to drink anything because you might miss something. And he came to me and he said, I think I found a loophole. This is what we can do. You need to promise
Wow.
me not to do anything illegal. I can tell you are not the person to lie. I believe what you've told me, and I'll let you go back in the country. But if it doesn't work out, you need to promise me that you will leave. I was like, I have to. I can't do my calling if I'm here illegally. I can't show up on a stage with thousands of people where everyone sees me. It's like, oh yeah, you're here illegally. Awesome. Probably not working too well. And then I came back, and a month before I had to leave the country, when those 3 months were up, I was like, okay, it's not going to happen. I can't figure anything out. I was at that point so low. Like, I was 27 and never had a job, didn't have any family, not really a home. There was just, I felt so horrible about myself. I had those pity parties going on, talking about parties.
Yep.
I was just miserable. I was miserable. And then my husband came home one day and he's like, I think God really spoke to my heart today. I want to marry you. I can't let you go.
Wow.
So after not even a year of knowing each other, we got married 2 weeks later. We're still married after 8 years.
Wow.
It is perfect. We both work very well together. He is a doctor in naturopathy now. He got his degree yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I saw that. Congrats. Tell him congrats.
Totally excited about that, because he is pushing me with my work, especially clearing emotions, trapped emotions. And that's been amazing. But I still went through this identity crisis. I didn't know, something was different. People called me out on it. It was just not, it just didn't feel right. And then I met a friend through a friend, and he said, I think coaching would be great for you. And that's when I started to go through ontological coaching training, which is spiritual coaching training. And that's when I figured out what is actually wrong with me. Meaning I am an empath, a very high level empath, I probably would say. Like, I can see the world in patterns. Like, if things happen around the world, I pick up on that. I see things other people don't see. I hear things very clearly. My hearing itself is 3 times as, how would you say, intense as other people's. I can see colors around people, like their hearts, the vibration of their hearts, my brain turns into color. And so since each color has a specific meaning, I can bring across some of the messages their soul is trying to communicate with them. So that has been incredible just over the last 6 years doing that work. But yeah, there were lots and lots of ups and downs that I could have avoided if I would have listened to my intuition.
But you had to learn the cost of not listening to it to be able to appreciate all the gifts that it brings. You know, it's like
very costly.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be where you are today without those lessons. So I'm super grateful that you learned how you learned, and you're where you are today with all the gifts and greatness that you're impacting the world with. And that's what we're going to be diving into today, is really how to navigate that. What did you learn? What was the wisdom that you picked up that helped you navigate your world as an empath, as someone who's more sensitive and intuitive? Like, what did you learn, and how can we share some of that with our audience today?
Well, for me, it was especially a struggle because usually empath, if you take a look at the characteristics of empaths, they're more introverted. They are the ones who operate in the background and they're totally happy with it. And I wasn't. It's like, okay, I can identify with a lot of the things that aren't aligned with an empath, but there are a lot of things that don't. And I don't know how to manage both of those, how to balance that. And then within a conversation with a friend of mine, it just hit me. She's like, well, take a look at your clients. What are the common denominators with your clients? And then we talked about that. And I was like, oh, empath warriors, they have this warrior energy, but have this those empathic abilities, and don't know how to bring both together, because it is the opposite pretty much. It's the introvert within the extrovert. And it's hard to manage that. Because you have this burden on your heart every day that you're called for something bigger, if it's in your community, if it's even on big stages, like for me now. But that fire never ceases. Like, it's always there, always. And you just get so frustrated over it and overwhelmed because, again, when you go on stage, you have sudden blackouts. You're like, oh, I don't know what to say anymore. Everything is gone. And that was my biggest fear. If I have so many people in front of me, my brain is so busy in trying to figure out what's coming at me because everyone is staring at you. If you have even just 10 people stare at you, that's already overwhelming. And they have expectations, right? And so my brain was always like working on what it was receiving instead of what I was supposed to say. And so that was really a struggle for me to figure that out. And within that, I worked with my own coaches. I was like, I need help, because then I had really a struggle with my son when he was born. It didn't fit in with my dream, and I didn't know how to bring both together. And then from my struggle emotionally, he got very sick physically, because especially mother and child are so much connected. And even our children, like, I mean, everything we feel and think, people immediately feel in a radius of 25 feet around us.
Wow.
That has been shown through research now. But indirectly, we impact everyone else with just the thoughts that we have, even if we don't say it out loud. So I felt some resentment towards my son, and that, well, he worked through that with physical pain. Like, he got very colicky. So that was another thing where I was like, well, something is going on. And so my coach said to me, hey, take a look at your emotions, because what you focus on, you create more of. And the same as with your emotions, what you are trying to avoid, you're so constantly like, I was like, I'm a mother. I love my son. I can't feel resentment. I can't feel anger. I can't be upset all day. Like, I was so focused on what I shouldn't feel that I created more of that instead of just acknowledging what I felt. And that was the turning point, especially. I mean, I already kind of had this knowing before. I mean, I coached 2 or 3 years before he was born. So I had this knowledge, and I'm like, why am I not getting this? But that's when it really came through for me. It's like, oh, my emotions are, especially as an empath, so important, because everything I receive, everything you receive is a vibration, a frequency that is attached to a specific emotional reaction. And then it creates the memories in your subconscious mind, and it goes right to your conscious mind, but only if the frequency is high enough. So that's why we feel higher vibrating, very high vibrating, and very low vibrating energies most, because they give a specific message to our brain, like, hey, pay attention, red flag, or oh, you're feeling actually good. Everything else is just being stored in the subconscious mind. And I realized that my son is communicating through his emotional world as soon as he was born, and I wasn't aware. So I just ignored him with his emotional needs. He communicated his needs through his emotional state, and I didn't pay attention to it. And that was the shift for me. And the same with, I worked with my clients. I went literally from financial coaching to relationship coaching to the coaching that I do now, really finding myself. This is exactly what I'm supposed to do. And so now I'm realizing that not just people who are highly sensitive, but everyone has this native language of emotions. And with that, I learned to become more of the observer of my world instead of being the victim of what is happening to me, especially as an empath. I explain it, I don't know if you heard another interview before, but I explain it like The Matrix. I've never seen the movie. I've always seen the trailer, and I know people tell me I should see it. I'm like, yeah, I like Keanu Reeves. I should probably watch it. But where everything in that Matrix starts to move slowly, like you can watch, like where he can see the bullets coming at him and he can move accordingly. Like, this is what I can do now as I would consider myself a trained empath. I can watch it if I pay attention, if I have awareness. If I have days where I don't pay attention, yeah, I'm in bed by 8, if not 7. Because then I'm totally worn out, totally exhausted. And then I know, oh, I didn't meditate this morning. I didn't stay in the moment. I didn't trust. Those days you have, and then you're just like, I know I just did that. And probably I did that on purpose for whatever reason, because I sabotage myself on purpose, knowingly choosing to sabotage myself because there's something that I need to do that I don't want to do. And
Yeah,
then I
well,
can use
there's a payoff. There's a payoff. There's a payoff for
with everything we do, right? There's always a payoff.
Right.
So it was quite interesting. But that's how I got to the point where I'm at today, really seeing, oh, this is how I impact other people's lives. This is how other people impact my life. So what is the common denominator? And that was emotions.
Wow. So it's like, what had you learn that emotions was the common denominator and was what you were supposed to be working in, the field that you were supposed to be working in?
For one, I speak 2 languages. And my mom would say I only speak one, which would be English, because my German sucks. Sorry, Mom. I've just gotten so used to speaking English that sometimes it takes me much longer to translate everything into German, which I shouldn't have the problem with, but I do. But when you take a look at how people communicate in different languages, they say the same things, but mean the different things. And I realized you cannot rely on language, on the word itself. Like, no, I don't want to mention this one because that you would beep that out. But there's so many different words. Now I can't think of one in particular, but that we use in the German language, totally different. And it's appropriate to say, it's okay to say, but when you say it in English, people look at you like you just killed someone, like you can't say that. And there were many times where where we had this communication going on, and I said something because I thought, wow, we say it in German. So I translated 1-to-1 and it's going to be fine. And he's like, oh, don't say that. And I realized we communicate between men and women. We communicate similar. It's almost like you speak 2 different languages. The same as with children. They don't have that language ability when it comes to vocabulary. So they communicate with their emotions. And often we just say, what's wrong, sweetie, right? We already indicate that there's something wrong with what they feel instead of just acknowledging what they feel. And the same with clients. Different ages, different generations still communicate differently when it comes to language. But we all communicate in a similar way when it comes to emotions.
Wow.
It's all the same vibration, no matter where you at on this earth.
It's pure and like so it's like pure and it's understandable through any culture, any genetics, any whatever. It's like we can all feel that vibration, that energy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what do we need to start knowing or being aware of with our energy so that we can be more successful in life, so we can take our vision and make it a reality and actually impact the world in even bigger ways?
One thing that I've learned, and you see it even now with everything that's going on socially, with social injustice. I mean, there's so much going on with the Me Too's and racism and all that kind of different movements that are happening, where I always take a look back, but they're also emotionally driven, but they're all very reactive. And if we really want to make a difference in the world, we have to start with us. I just learned something today from someone in our group. She did a meditation session, and she learned that from Gabby Bernstein. Peace is in me. Peace is in me. She does that. And that's a reminder that we have to start with ourselves. The healing needs to happen first before we can actually start a movement. And the healing part is the hard part that people don't want to work through, that people don't want to have to deal with. It's like anytime I talk about emotions, people are like, oh, that sounds awesome. And that's really makes perfect sense. And then I say, okay, and now you need to go through my course because it's really important to do that. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to deal with that because I know there's a lot of pain buried inside of us. Even if it's generational, there's a lot of shame and guilt that has been passed down generation to generation that especially now the younger people can feel extremely. And it's wanting to come out because we see this shift of awakening happening, right? And so this pain needs to come out. And sometimes it's not pretty, but we have to deal with the healing before we can really create the deep connections. I say that the more you are aware of what's going on inside of you, and you have worked through the pain and letting go of some of those trapped emotions, even if it's inherited, you become more reflective instead of reactive. When you are more reflective, you don't take everything personally what other people say. You can just acknowledge the pain in them. Unless you really were an asshole and you need to acknowledge that and you need to apologize, then that's on you. But you are aware of that. You know, like, oh, I think I did a mistake here. I'm sorry. I apologize. Or I said that and I didn't want to really, it just came out. But again, that goes back to being reflective in what just happened, what created the dynamic that you're in. And when you can do that, you are able to love on a much different level. I mean, that's just a love that comes from so deep within you. Even when I would say to you right now, I love you, it's nothing like that is romantic. It's just literally the human connection. Like, you're awesome. And we can say that without feeling like, oh, that's weird. That's odd. You don't say that. That's just, you know, and if we can come from a place like that, it creates that ripple effect. If someone is not reacting to what you just said, you take a step. I'm like, why did they just not react? Like, why did they just not punch me in the face? And the more that is happening, the more you reflect within the community or within the family. You create a different environment because you're more reflective and less reactive. When that happens within families, you take that out into your community. When it happens within communities, you take it out into your nation and your country. If you are a country that is more peaceful, other countries see that and they want to know why and what and how, and you can interact with them much differently. And so you create the global change that you want to see. But again, we're so resistant to doing the work inside of us that we just go out and say, I'm going to do this movement and I'm going to do this and I'm going to fight for this without actually doing the healing part of it. So it just creates a turnaround. We're just putting other people in similar situations that we have found ourselves in, almost like a payback. Now I'm going to make you see what you did to me. And it doesn't move us forward. It just turns everything around and we're still spinning in the same cycle, just different dynamic, different context, right? But we don't want that. So that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I see how much a difference it makes in my family and how I relate to people. And I mean, people just send me messages telling me their whole life story. Like, I just feel safe with you. I feel like I don't even know you, but I feel like I feel safe and I can send it to you and say that to you. And people have been on the bus with me and telling me their suicide story. Like, I'm thinking about killing myself in like 10 minutes. I'm jumping off that train. And you sit there and like, why do you tell me that? I don't have therapist on my forehead, but apparently I do. But usually I can just by acknowledging them, saying, hey, I see you. It's okay to feel this way, and just giving them the space to be. If it's if someone is angry, for example, say, I'm angry. Okay, I'll give you that space to be angry. How can we express that in a safe way? Like I tell people this exercise of conscious complaining. Find a wall, set the timer to 10 minutes, and get everything at that wall that you just can. Get it out. Thank the wall when you're done, and let the energy go out the window to clear the air so you don't have it attached to you. But it's super, super helpful. And the really fun thing is I have this emotions course, right? How to navigate your emotions successfully. And surprisingly, I have a lot of young men sign up. Under 35. I did not expect that whatsoever. But they send me messages like, this anger exercise really helped me. I didn't know I had so much anger stored inside of me, but at least I didn't let it out on my girlfriend or wife. And it was like, yes, that's exactly what we want. Giving you the space to just be okay with what you feel. For me, it was okay to feel that resentment towards my son, but just acknowledging it didn't make it so heavy and so threatening, and it didn't deny the love that I still had for my son, or have for my son. Obviously, he's still alive. And so, but it just gave me that space, and that is the space that we have to give each other as well, no matter if you're a stranger or not. We just had the situation in our neighborhood. People were there was a RV in our neighborhood, really old, like literally almost falling apart. I was like, what is that? Like, oh my, it doesn't quite fit in the neighborhood. But it's like, oh, whatever. Maybe someone wants to go on vacation. But online, there were other neighbors that were, how can we get rid of them? What is going on there? There are 4 people living in there. That's just trailer trash. And all those name calls, I was like, has anyone ever gone over and just asked like what the situation is? Maybe you are the one who can help in that situation. And they were like, no, I'm not going over there. I was like, okay. So I took my son and I said, we're going to learn a lesson now. And it was one of the posts on my Facebook, and we're going to learn a lesson now how to respect other people and not judge them. And so we went over, and I found out the guy was younger. I think he was either my age or younger, but he wasn't very old. And he said, well, there's a situation with my wife going on. She's a drug addict, and it all went downhill from here. And I have 2 little girls, 1 and 2 years old, 1 and 2 years old.
Wow.
And he thought that he could maybe help his wife by getting the trailer so they can just move and not have to spend all the money on rent. And it didn't work out. She left. And so he stayed with his parents, and that he just parked it there, and then it had a flat tire and he couldn't move it, and he wanted to move it. But they were all just trying to get rid of them. And I just went over and talked to him like, hey, that is the situation. Maybe we can help you. Maybe there are people that have an old tire that they don't need just for you to move this thing. And he was so grateful. I mean, we were giving each other a hug, and I said, you know what? I see you, and I really acknowledge you for raising your 2 daughters on your own. I want my son to understand that this is how we can act with each other and how we can interact, no matter what your color is, no matter what your background is, no matter if you're on house arrest or not. It happens. And he's like, I want to get my life back on track, but it's so hard, and people don't make it easier on me. It's like, you know what? I hear you. I hear you. That's all we have to say. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to figure things out. We just have to hear them. That's all people want to know. And that's that emotional connection. You do not respond to, like, he could have come at me, like throwing some words at me that weren't appropriate. You don't know. He could have been really angry, but we connected on an emotional level just because I said, I see you.
Wow. That's amazing. So it sounds like the experiences that you got, the experiences that you have are because of non-judgment, or because of you come from the space of I see you, I just want to hear you, I just want to understand you. What is this energy that you're feeling? What are the emotions that you're feeling? And how can I see with you so you don't feel alone? And then we can create a solution together, or at least space, space to have yourself feel validated. So, because like a lot of people with the story that I'm alone are more like righteous about that story about being alone, and that perpetuates the aloneness, versus they feel like someone is with them, and they're like, man, okay, so I'm not alone, and at least like she can get it, Isabel can get it, like this guy is probably like, Isabel can get it, okay, well then if she can get it, maybe there's solutions, maybe there's I'm not so hopeless after all, maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel now.
Right. Well, and you know it yourself. When you create something or you try to figure something out under stress, you make so many mistakes. You just react. You're so fast in making actions that you regret afterwards. But if you give someone that space, you don't have to even do anything. Like, hey, okay, I'll give you that space to figure it out. They can approach the situation with a different sense of urgency and more clarity, and then they can actually find a solution that is long-term much better for them. And all you had to do was to just acknowledge them and respect them. I think that's a big thing. When we when we understand and are aware and how to navigate our emotional world, we can show much more respect to everyone else. There's just a different respect level, and that is something that is like just talking about it gets me so fired up on that, because if we have this respect level, well, I just said it with the global impact on this one.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. So you're teaching people how to become emotionally aware. What's the process for that? What do we need to do to gain access to that superpower of being aware of our emotions, being aware of our present, and being able to connect with other people more effectively?
How to start with that is to make a decision, is to declare, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to let go of all the musts and the shoulds and the coulds and the woulds. Like we have so many expectations on ourselves and expectations that we have from other people, our parents, friends. Like we should always do some certain things. We should run our business a certain way. That is what usually gets me, where I am getting lost in it. And then I get really frustrated. And my husband's like, you're doing this thing again. Like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to throw something. Yeah. So there have been a lot of things that have been thrown at my wall because I'm not perfect either, even though I teach it, and I have quite of a temper.
It's the German. It's the German in you.
Back to that, I just blame the Germans for it. I don't have to take responsibility for that. It's always good to have an excuse, at least one. But no, what really is to declare and to make this choice that I am responsible for how I feel and how I experience the world. Just that declaration and this choice that you make in that moment opens up doors to more understanding, to the willingness. Like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears or the teacher shows up. That's what will happen. If you just make this choice, something will happen. It doesn't mean that you need to work with me or that you have to sign up for my course, but maybe someone else comes who explains it in your language, right? So that you get it easier and better. And I totally support that.
Quick question. What if people have made the decision, but they're still attached? Kind of how you were saying you were attached to how it all unfolds. How do we become less attached to how it happens?
Well, in that moment, you also have to make a choice to not be attached to that. It's a trust issue. When we're attached to something, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust a divine power. I think one thing is emotions are spiritual. It's how our soul speaks to us. It's emotions are a very soul level understanding in how we receive messages from our divine self, from God, through the soul. Like it's a tool. Our emotions are tools to help us understand where are we not in alignment, where are we not operating from our values, right? And so what you can do is one exercise that I always tell my clients, how you start out with is to journal for at least 1 or 2 weeks. You write down how you wake up and how you feel. And like, for example, I wake up and I'm totally happy. And then, I took a shower and suddenly I feel totally frustrated, overwhelmed, anxious. What was the thought about that? I looked at my to-do list, at all the shoulds that I need to do and all the expectations from my boss. I had all the deadlines. Oh, okay. Then what happened after that? I had breakfast. I calmed down a little bit because I realized I just have to eat something first. Being hungry doesn't help. And then I went to work, or I started my business, or I had this conversation with my child, and this is how I felt. So for a week or 2 weeks, you really have to be very consistent with writing down what you feel, and you will see a pattern. What is it that I'm always responding to? What am I reacting to? How can I change my thoughts? And so you take that list from each day and take a look at your thoughts that you had in that moment where your emotions shifted. And if they were positive or negative. If they were negative, you can create a more positive counter piece to what you have experienced in that moment. And you write them down. And every time you get back to that old pattern, you can say, okay, I am okay. I can trust myself. I have the ability to meet this deadline. My boss has his own issues to deal with. It is not mine. I can handle it. Like those little things that you can start to tell yourself, and you start to realize, oh, this is the emotion. This is what's coming up for me. Anger is always about boundaries. Where are people stepping over your boundaries? Where are you not respecting your own boundaries? Where are you in the process of growing? Children become angry because they have new situations every time they develop. And every time they have new situations and new experiences, they have to restructure their boundaries, right? So they get angry because they don't know how to. And most of us adults don't either. Fear is usually about it's telling us like, hey, where are there actions that you're not taking, or where did you take an action that you know is not in alignment with your value or your calling? Because we all know that on a hard level. So it really is a discovery journey within, and you have to be willing to do the work and actually ask someone for support, because if you get deep inside, it can get really, really messy.
Yeah.
And to get out of that mess, you need someone to can hold that against and say, hey, look here, look, not there, look right here, you're going to be okay. You know, those little things help us. And not everyone is willing to get there, because does get messy, but it's okay too. You know, everyone is ready at that time where they know, like, it's just that internal knowing when you're ready. You just have to take that step, and understanding again, what is actually the questions that I can ask myself when I feel sad, when I have this feeling of grief. Grief can come up in business as well. If you have to let go of a project, you have to go through the process of grief. We don't do it. We beat ourselves up. That didn't work out. I lost a lot of money. Now I need to create something new. And you're already in the moving forward. I did that, by the way. So learn from that too. So just the basic knowing can help us to create more awareness, and then you can work through some of the things. Again, being aware of that, some of that can be related back to trapped emotions. That's why I, as an empath, can really do that remotely. And it's been incredible work so far, even for myself, because some of it I'm not aware of. The speaking was related to a trapped emotion that happened in high school, where I got totally embarrassed speaking in front of my classmates, and it got stuck. I never dealt with it. And so that showed up now on stage. Wow. So it's really just paying attention, being in the moment, and letting go of the shoulds and the woulds and the coulds and the expectations. Like, just simple breathing exercises help. Just taking 3 deep breaths or 5 deep breaths and just letting it all out. Like, you can even make a sound if you want to, which is letting it out helps calm your nervous system. Very important, calming your nervous system, because we have this overstimulation over and over every single day.
Yeah, my gosh. Calm your nervous system. That is gold. That is gold, 100%. So, Isabel, we're beginning to wrap up, and you shared some amazing stuff, your own journey. I especially love the RV example and you sharing with your son how to practice non-judgment. I think that was a really, really great example, and thank you for sharing that. And as far as anything else that you want our audience to receive, or recap on some things that we said, or just final takeaways from this interview, we would love them.
I think one thing that is really, really important to know, and how to start, your emotional world reveals what you value most in life. And every time you're stepping out of that value system that you have, and that's your core, and your core is always related back to love and joy. It's like this essence inside of you. I need to take a look at where I'm not in alignment anymore. Where am I stepping outside of what I'm actually here to do? So always paying attention. Your emotional world reveals what you value most in life.
Wow. Value most. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. You're awesome, Isabel. How do people stay connected with you, and what do they do next? What can we invite them to do next?
Well, I would like to invite them to sign up for the emotions course if they are willing to. It's the website is theempoweredwarrior.com with all the information. And if you sign up within the next or a couple days, doesn't really matter actually, you can use the coupon code TEW30, so the Empowered Warrior TEW30 to get 30% off. It's an incredible, very short course, not very short course, but I keep the videos very short. So it's for the busy individual, but it helps you to just get that foundational knowing in, and that reflecting and the awareness, that first step to really grow. So that's what I would like for clients, or invite them to. Yeah.
Question. For people who listen to this on the podcast in about 7 weeks, what can they do?
Yeah, they can still use the coupon code. Okay. I'll leave it up.
Okay, cool. And the website, again, is theempoweredwarrior.com.
Theempoweredwarrior.com. Or you can just go to my own website, isabelhunt.com, and you just click on courses, and you can find the link there too. Either way works.
Awesome. Got those notes, and I'll definitely make sure those are in the show notes. And Isabel, are you on social media? Can people follow you, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn? Where you at?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
No, not quite. I actually picked a few. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Isabel Hundt, right? On Twitter, I'm not too much on Twitter, but it's Isabel K. Hunt. And Instagram, I'm really started to enjoy that part of social media. I really like it. It's also Isabel Hunt, Instagram.com/Isabel Hunt. It pretty much everything is.
Cool.
So it's quite easy. I made it easy for people to find me.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, Isabel. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing, the creation, the play that you are engaging in and mastering your emotions so that you can show up and show other people how to master their emotions and really dance in life. I think it's like all a dance as we grow and become our greatest possible selves and just everything that you've gone through and everything that you I don't want to say question, but like that you had to grow through as your boundaries, as your perspective shifted about like what was you, who you were supposed to be, should, would, all that stuff. I really, really acknowledge you for growing through that and stepping into your power, into your message now and not being attached to how it looks, but just trusting the process. It's really, really incredible.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I received this acknowledgement and, but the same goes for you. I mean, I'm always super, super excited when I see especially younger people implement and just embrace that kind of understanding, especially the spiritual side of it and how to connect with people. And you're doing it amazingly. So really, really great work.
Thank you, Isabel. This is the start of, well, not the start. We've been on this journey for a while, and we connected here on this show, and I'm sure there will be many more opportunities our paths cross because you're doing amazing work in the world, and so am I. And when people are out to make a big, big impact, they tend to meet each other often. So
that is true. At some point, everyone just like, oh, the world is really, really small.
Right?
Where have you come from? Yes.
Awesome. So everyone listening, definitely stay connected with Isabel. She's a superstar. And Isabel, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you very soon, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care.